Good morning, everyone. It is May 12th, 2023. I'm going to do a little more of a continuation of the last two videos and the big schmozzle that occurred with thinking that someone had been murdered. And it's been sort of difficult, as you can see from the last video, for poor Julie. She's suffering terribly with this, being a straight person, and they have to deal with death all the time. And so it was understandable. She kept coming back, oh no, she's been murdered. And I'm trying to say, no, that's not correct from my sources. So, and part of this is I want to make sure that people understand what's actually going on and what I'm seeing with the homeless too. One thing I notice is literacy is a definite problem because they can't understand unless they can read and write. That is a huge problem. Fortunately, I know how to read and write. We have a big problem because they have no clue on how to problem solve. And as my mother had said back in 1993, and she died at 83 before she died, she told me that people today are just losing common sense. There's no common sense here. And I find that too. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to read a story to you. What I have done is one of the things that I did after I separated from my second husband, I joined a seniors group. It was through Helped Age Canada. It was a theater group that we had formed, and it was playback theater where we went into all the different old age homes and aging in place homes and dementia and schizophrenia and everything else that we were dealing with that some of our seniors were dealing with. And one of the things that came in very handy was being able to talk about stories. And being a senior, it was nice because when you had say, for example, someone who had dementia, you could go back in time with them because we had been in that time. So if they were talking about something, let's say in the 60s, oh, we were there. Oh, yeah, we remember those bell-bottom pants. Oh, yes, of course. So it's communication. And this is one of the stories that I'm going to read to you. It's about communication. Now, this book I'm going to show you here is an actual book. It's called Our Stories, Their Stories. And it's a journey across Canadian history through the eyes of Canadian seniors. Help Age Canada. Our elders are our teachers. They have much wisdom to share, gained from the experience of their lives. Help Age Canada is proud to present Our Stories, Their Stories to give our seniors an opportunity to have their voice heard. This collection contains truly Canadian stories about overcoming obstacles and surviving difficulties. There are tales of tragedy and triumph from war and the Depression era, which demonstrate how valuable community is to every generation about coming to a new land, Canada, to have a fresh start. The stories are about learning and growing, how things have changed and yet stay the same. Traveling through time, you'll be delighted with the stories that make you laugh and make you think. Our Stories, Their Stories are captured moments of precious Canadian history as told by those who have lived them. Help Age Canada works to improve and maintain the quality of life of vulnerable older persons and their communities in Canada and around the world through building networks that support the interests of older persons affected by poverty, injustice, and discrimination with a view to help them lead dignified, secure, and healthy lives. Now, there's actually two books here I have that are actually same from Helped Age Canada. It was so successful for the first book, we did a second book. Now, there's also a third book that was done, and this was done through Our Stories, Their Stories again. This is Tales of Turtle Island History, gifted to us by Indigenous seniors. Now, this is, if you read the back, we hope you enjoy this collection of stories, poems, and anecdotes gathered from Indigenous seniors across Turtle Island. This book was produced by the Wabano Centre for Aboriginal Health with the support of a New Horizons grant from the Government of Canada. The narratives speak to the cultural diversity, creativity, and resilience of our most valued resource, our wonderful seniors. So I have at least 4 stories and 1 poem in all 3 of the books. And the story I want to read to you is definitely about the problems of communication. And sometimes we also went into the schools, and we'd also end up the young people want to know, how do we handle bullying back in our day, when everything's online and everybody's hidden behind a computer today. So, we had a really good talk, and this is one of the stories that I read to them that broke the ice and got us all talking. So I'm going to read this story to you, and I hope you enjoy this story. And it's sort of the first part of it because I did not get a chance to write the second part to the story. But I'm going to read the first part, and then I will say what the second part is. At 50, Mother's Bad Hair Day, that is what I entitled it. At 57 years of age, I just purchased my very first cell phone. I bought the simplest one I could find, as this new technology is just beyond my grasp. However, my daughter Gabby was excited about me taking my first step into this modern age. She was more than happy to show me how to use my new phone. She was running down the list of what the phone could do when she excitedly explained to me that I could do three-way calling and that she, Aunt Heather, and I could all talk together at once. While my daughter was explaining this to me, it brought back memories of my childhood. Remember the days of the old party lines when you shared your phone line with 3 or more people? This brought back a very funny memory when my mother was waiting for a call from the doctor. Remember those days when you called the doctor and the doctor called you back, not the receptionist? There were 3 people on our party line. My mother, who was a registered nurse, Myrtle, the hypochondriac who had every illness in the book, and then some, and Gladys, the neighborhood busybody, who had a nose into everyone's business and had a knack for making a molehill into a mountain. One morning, right after breakfast, I was about 10 years old. I was sitting on the stairs listening to my mother on the phone. She was trying to get hold of the doctor as my brother Ted was sick in bed, and Mother had important questions about his medication. Of course, Myrtle and Gladys were on the line with their gossip. It took Mother several tries to butt into the conversation to get them to hang up so the doctor could call her back. The phone rang. This time it was the doctor when my mother answered. No sooner were they on the line when Myrtle and Gladys got on the line too. Myrtle didn't want to pass up the chance to get free advice for her latest illness, although she usually consulted my mother, the registered nurse. Myrtle now had the real McCoy on the line and began asking questions. I took the chance to sneak downstairs and peek around the corner. Mother, who was usually a very patient woman, tried several times to politely get Myrtle off the line. She was turning beet red in the face and getting so angry that you could just see the steam rising from her head. I was just in time to see Mother literally gripping the phone, then getting her voice from somewhere deep inside her. Out of her mouth came, "Myrtle, shut up! You're not dead yet." I could hear Myrtle taking a gasp of air, then blasting Mother back. "Is that any way to talk to a dying woman, Jean?" Mother's furious reply was, "The day you're dead, I will be sure to put a lovely bouquet of flowers on your grave. Now I want to speak to the doctor." I can just imagine what the doctor was thinking. Next, you could hear Myrtle slam down her phone down, and Mother got to talk to the doctor. However, keep in mind that Gladys had also been listening to everything on the end of her line as well. My mother finally hung up after talking to the doctor, and everything went back to normal until after lunch. Then our doorbell started ringing. Suddenly we had a parade of neighbors at the door with baked goods, all asking how my brother was, and if it were really true that he was dying. Mother, realizing that Gladys had just made another molehill into a mountain, had to explain to everyone what was really going on. Of course, the last one to ring the door was Gladys herself. Mother, at a loss at words, looked at Gladys, who was holding out a cup, asking Mother if she could borrow a cup of sugar. When Mother finally found her voice again, her response was, "I'm totally out of sugar. Good day." Then she closed the door in Gladys's face. By the time my father got home for supper, Mother, who was usually there at the door to greet him with a kiss and cheerful "How was your day?" was at work, was on the couch in tears. Looking at me, he asked what was going on. I was trying to explain at 10 years of age that Mother had been on the phone with the doctor. Myrtle was dying, and the neighbors were at the door, and they thought that Mother had said that my brother was dying because Gladys said so. As I was not making much sense, my dad asked me, "Christy, your mother didn't blow up the kitchen again, did she?" He then asked if my brother Ted was hurt and what Myrtle was doing in our kitchen. Father was referring to a previous incident during which no one was hurt, but which scared the wits out of my mother and me. I guess he was thinking someone got hurt this time. In the previous incident, I was home from school, sick in bed, when I heard a loud boom, and my mother screamed in horror from the kitchen. Racing downstairs, I found Mother under the kitchen table shaking. As I started to ask my mother what was wrong, something fell on my shoulder. Turning to look at my shoulder, I saw a couple of sliced carrots and pieces of dried paint sitting on my shoulder. Looking up, I saw more carrots and paint stuck to the ceiling. it started to rain more carrots on me. Looking to one side of the kitchen, I saw the pressure cooker lid lying on the floor, and looking to the other side of me, I saw the bottom of the pressure cooker lying on the floor. Poor mother had been cooking carrots in the pressure cooker on the stove when it blew up on her. That did make quite a bang that I will never forget. When my dad got home, it was just a simple solution of repainting the kitchen. I told Dad, no, Mom didn't blow up the kitchen this time. I was feeling so sorry for Dad as he walked into all the day's confusion, as well as into a total communication breakdown. As I wasn't much help in explaining things, he turns his attention to my mother. Dad said, Jean darling, what happened today? Mother started crying even harder, and between sobs blurted out how my brother Ted was dying because she said so. The neighbors believe her because she was a nurse, and Gladys can't mind her own business. Looking back on it now, Dad must have thought we had totally lost our minds. Even my brother wasn't much help when Father asked what happened. Ted had been asleep through the whole thing upstairs in bed. However, my dad, being the patient man he was, took my mother's hand and said, Jean, dear, why don't you start from the beginning? So Mother, wiping away her tears, told Dad the whole story. When she finished, she realized she hadn't given Dad a kiss and asked how his day at work was. As she asked him, he replied with, my day could not possibly compare to the day you just had with all that drama and excitement. In fact, it was a very average day at the office. Now let's make the rest of this day an enjoyable one. Dear Jean, you put your feet back and on rest. I'm cooking dinner tonight. I'm sure Dad was thinking about the day my mother had blown up the kitchen and the state Mother was in today. He should cook dinner, so we still had our kitchen intact. Today's problem was more than just putting on a new coat of paint. Thanks to my dad, he made the home right side up again. This was a time when women stayed home, cooked and cleaned while the husband went out and worked. The real Leave It to Beaver era. So much for today's social media, Facebook, etc. The good old party line has not died and gone to the way of the dinosaurs. The biggest thing I learned early in life, and is true to this day, is that gossip and bullying are damaging. If only every generation could put this lesson into practice and not use technology to further gossip. I told this story recently to a high school student by telling him this generation uses technology that our generation invented. They will determine if it is good or bad. The next generation will be the guardians of how technology is used, for today and in the future. If properly used, there is so much hope for the future. I can only hope my grandchildren and great-grandchildren reap the benefits of what our generation gave to the future. So this is the first part of the story, which broke the ice, and all the students started talking about various subjects to us, and it was a really good powwow, if you want to put it, because there was so much information going back between the seniors as well as the students at that time. But the part that I did not get a time to actually put in is how we problem solved this problem with Gladys. Now, my parents, we had a 100 by 50 foot lot. Unfortunately, Gladys lived right next door to us, and we had a double laneway with her. So to solve the problem of keeping her nose on her side of the fence, what we did, or what my dad and mom did, was we had the garage, so they tore up the lawn before the garage, and then what they did was they put up a fence with a great big hedge, which was great big tall rose bushes that were very thorny on that side where Gladys lived, and put a carport on the other side of our house. Now, this is how we problem solved that situation. So, of course, if Gladys decided to stick her nose over our white picket fence, she was going to find that she had just stuck her nose into a very thorny situation. So we used to do things, and we used to think before we act. And it was really good. And this is one of the things that I really wanted to impress on people today, is there are ways of solving our problems, but it seems like we've lost the ability to solving our problems, and our politicians are not listening, although some of them are, definitely, because at least I'm working with the ones that are listening in our area here, trying to get things done. But everybody balks at what needs to be done. So I wanted to share this with you today, that where there's a will, there's a way. And this is what we were showing the students. So it's guiding our young people today, which not having the seniors, like I grew up with my grandfather in the house with me, so I had the advantage of having my grandfather there to help guide me in my early life. And that was wonderful. But here we have our seniors sitting in old age homes and everything, and just sitting there staring at the wall, twiddling their thumbs in most cases, and they don't have anyone to talk to. But even those, like I said, with dementia, if another senior comes up and knows and lived through that particular period of time, oftentimes they will come out and they can at least talk about that time period. So it's very helpful, because another thing that happened was it was very interesting. We had this 95-year-old senior. She definitely had dementia, and she just sat there and she looked at the wall, just stared at the wall. Well, because we were an interactive acting troupe, we started singing one of the old songs. Well, lo and behold, much to everybody's shock, she actually got up out of her wheelchair and slowly started to dance. So one of our male actors went over and started to do a slow dance with her. And it was really, really beautiful, you know, and you could just imagine, boy, she must have had a real beau back in the old days, and perhaps that's what she was thinking about, was that beautiful dance that she had with him. So there are many, many ways that we can solve our problems, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. And I appreciate, again, listening to me, because I have so much more information that I wish to share with you, and it's going to come out slowly. And thank you for listening, and have a good day, and bye-bye. Take care.